Welcome to part 2 of our Goal of the Decade countdown, where we'll be looking back at the best goals scored from 2010 to 2019. In this video, we're looking at goals 90 to 81, and we're going to start with this one. It was a memorable day at Old Trafford.
And a long clearance as Pella, Blackett all over him. Ward-Prowse nods it, looks for a return ball, gets it. TADIC when he's back to goal, 20 yards out, turns, lays it off to Pella. Pella in the box, hits the post. Back out to TADIC, who scores! Southampton have taken the lead at Old Trafford. DUŠAN TADIC just off the bench, scores his third league goal for the club.
Yeah, I think when you have a player like him that can just sort of be in any area of the pitch, regardless of how tight they may be being marked, sort of just able to sort of be comfortable in possession of the football, but I guess maybe a frustration point of view for some of us Southampton supporters over his time here would have been maybe just delivering that on a more regular basis, because as we've just seen, certainly had the talent and the ability, but it's just producing it on a more frequent situation in games.
The weird thing about TADIC when you look at his career at Saints is how he sort of changed and adapted, and he started off as this kind of guy he was Mr. Assist, wasn't he? He was sort of Pella's right-hand man, if you like. And that was kind of his role, was sort of a mercurial talent type of role. And everybody criticised him for not working hard enough. Then things got harder for Saints generally as time went on, and he really dug in and then worked really hard, and his creativity suffered, and people criticised him because he wasn't being as creative as he was. But for my liking, was always a terrific all-round player and a guy you'd always want in your team.
Ball is cut out on halfway, and now Rodriguez can run at the MK Dons defence. Skips past two defenders, he's going to get to the ball, the edge of the box, into the penalty area, right-footed, sweet finish. Jay Rodriguez, all his own work, in the goals in the cup competitions again.
He's got such a northern personality. You know, he doesn't take himself too seriously. He's always laughing and always joking around, but you know, when it comes to the sort of football side of things, he's one of the hardest working people I think I've met.
I think he was one of the best. I really admire him as a player. He was a clever footballer, smart, had all the attributes.
When you start from that sort of far out, you know, wonder what's going through the player's mind. It's probably just beating maybe the first or second player, and then as you get that little bit nearer to goal, it would probably be quite easy to just have a quick rush of blood to the head and you know, sort of fluff your finish a little bit. So yeah, to keep the concentration as well as the speed that he was travelling at to actually score takes a lot of concentration, and you know, he did it on many occasions, as we know, and you know, it was a shame when he picked up the bad injury, but somebody that was you know, a good player and somebody fondly remembered here at Southampton.
Headed away by Stevenage. Callum Chambers would have, for half a second, thought about a shot. Instead, it comes back to Reeves. Oh, another belter! An absolute cracker from Ben Reeves.
Ben Reeves, I can remember being sort of talked about as an exciting young talent, but of course it's like any young talent trying to break into a first team. It's not easy, but he definitely possessed some quality, and the goal he scored at Stevenage proved that. It wasn't to be for him ultimately at Saints, and he moved on. Saints' philosophy at that time, and has been for many years, is to try and introduce young players into the team, and some of them will stick and will flourish, and some of them will move on. But I think Ben Reeves went on to MK Dons and did well there, and that is kind of the hallmark of Saints. And I think Ben Reeves proved in that period of time, in sort of the short term after Saints, short to medium term, that there was a career for him elsewhere in football as well.
Coming in at number 87 is one of the more bizarre goals that we're going to see in our countdown. This goal for Saints was a fantastic volley from the edge of the penalty area, but amazingly, it was an opposition player that scored it.
Saints win it back. Schneiderlin trying to get forward, chips it over the edge of the box, and then a ridiculous own goal! almost just smashed it into his own net from 12 yards out.
That 8-0 win against Sunderland will always be remembered because of the scoreline, of course, and people will talk about not necessarily the individual goals, but just the occasion. It became an absolute rout. Sunderland were a shambles. But when you go back to that game, you have to laugh at the way it all started. Forget all the goals that came afterwards. How did a defender, volley it so beautifully past his own keeper with his right foot, almost facing the goal? He didn't even try and clear the ball. It's almost like he just decided to whack it because he was annoyed. It was 0-0 at the time. And of course, it started the avalanche of the afternoon.
Quite an achievement, I would say, to put that in your own net. I've scored quite a few nice own goals. But he even got time there, and to have create panic there in that situation is quite impressive, really.
Growing in confidence, Southampton, edge of the box, lovely backheel, CLYNE in the area, equalises for Southampton. Fantastic strike, DUŠAN TADIC's backheel undid Liverpool.
Yeah, wonderful strike, wasn't it? But a great bit of play, you know, from effectively a throw-in, ball going into DUŠAN TADIC, and you know, something that he was more than capable of doing, wasn't it? You know, you think as a defender, when you've got the player sort of facing his own goal, they're not much of a threat or a danger, but you know, Nathaniel CLYNE obviously carried that run on, played the ball into TADIC, and to get the ball back from him with that wonderful piece of skill. And then there was still work to be done. It was certainly not a foregone conclusion that it was going to be a goal. So the strike itself was just matched a bit of skill from TADIC as well. So, you know, great goal.
Well, we've just seen two great goals from defenders, but only one of them in the right net. What a strike that was from Nathaniel CLYNE. But there's no time to waste. We're going to throw it right back to the start of the decade in January 2010 and a big night in the Johnson's Paint Trophy. This was the first leg in the Southern Area final between Saints and MK Dons, and it will always be remembered for this piece of magic by Michail Antonio.
It was another one of those special moments, all those moments that you look back on and you think, well, that was kind of what helped get us to a very memorable stage, a cup final, whatever. They're always the ones that really stand out. And Antonio himself was a really interesting, exciting young talent when he was at Saints, who's obviously gone on to prove himself as a top-level player elsewhere as well. And he just was one of those guys, a bit like following in the footsteps of Papawago. He just had that kind of chaos factor about him, especially as he was so young and raw there. And that was just, the goal was just kind of a taster of what he could offer when he was on song.
When he came from Reading, and I watched the boy, he was raw, but he was powerful and he was quick. And I would have liked to have seen the club, and I said this during commentaries, I would like to have seen us to have hung on to the boy. And I think he's been a good player for West Ham. They can play him out wide, they can play him up the front. He's a big, strong, powerful boy, but get you goals as well. I just would have liked to have seen the club maybe sign him and keep him a little bit longer than what they did.
Here it comes. Ward-Prowse whips it to the heart of the box. Free header! And Southampton have the lead late. And on his debut, off the bench, Charlie Austin scores for Southampton.
It was just amazing. I think we were all in the press box, like kind of like, my goodness, did that just happen? It's like there was a huge expectation when Charlie Austin signed that this was kind of the guy who was going to score the goals. I think a lot of Saints fans had hoped for a long time that Charlie Austin would end up at the club at some stage, and yeah, I mean, he just sort of strolls on towards the end of the game, gets a free kick, and you know, you just think, my goodness, he's scored. Like, is it really him? He's just come on and scored immediately. And I guess at that stage, you come away from Old Trafford having won, and I don't know, I guess it was kind of typical of some of the emotions of that period. When I look back, of kind of, it felt a bit like anything was possible for periods of time around that era, and that was just one of those amazing sort of fairy tale moments that you don't get many of if you follow clubs like Southampton, so you've got to make the most of them. They turn up, guy comes off the bench, heads it straight in the goal, go home 1-0, lovely.
Clyne drives towards the byline. He just can't get the clearance away from Traore. It might have come off Traore's hand, you know. And then PUNCHEON does well to put the ball across him. Low shot, left-footed, 2-0 Southampton.
Pretty crucial for the side at that stage of the season, and against another side that was struggling a bit, and a side that I remember playing against QPR over the years, and the support that we had, sort of obviously going up to London, not too far a trip for our Southampton supporters, and yeah, that always made a big difference, and obviously did to the team on that day. And a great drop of the shoulder from Punch, and wonderful finish into the far corner, and obviously went towards a result that meant a big importance for us in the league at the time.
You've got a full-back in a position. He's not in a position to strike the ball or cross the ball into the box. He shields the ball, he turns, and he gets his shoulder up as he turns, and he's looking up and sees the player, sees PUNCHEON coming. He plays him in early, Punch picks the ball up, and as he's cutting in, he just looks up, sees where the goalkeeper is, and if you look at the goal, he's actually bent the ball around the keeper. That's great awareness.
Now good reading of the pass from Schneidling's intercepted. Conley's played a good ball to PRADO inside the penalty, onto his left foot. Southampton have the lead. What a sweet, sweet finish from GULY to PRADO.
Well, that one was played from Hammond, and he has the time and space to run at the defender. It looks as if he's going to go down the outside. Defender's running across fairly quickly. He realises that the defender's coming quickly, and he checks it inside, clips it away, and scores a good goal. He seemed to play in flashes to me. He had good games, and then you wouldn't see him for a while. So he was a bit of a mixed bag in a way.
Yeah, he was a charismatic character. Very infectious. Yeah, he was a good-hearted person, mate, to be honest. And I think there was a group of like foreign players around that time, Raddy and Papa, and it was. I've been at clubs where they all keep themselves, like the foreigners keep themselves to themselves, but as a team, we had banter between ourselves, and it was a great dressing room, to be honest, mate. And GULY was one of the main figures in the dressing room. It was, like I said, very charismatic character to be around.
The final goal of this video comes courtesy of DUŠAN TADIC, and it was a fantastic bit of skill that held Saints to a win over West Ham.
And then Davis takes it off Kouyaté, who gave it away. Lovely ball through. TADIC should go around the keeper. Great dummy. 2-0 Southampton. And DUŠAN TADIC with a lovely drop of the shoulder does for Adrian.
Again, a player with a lot of confidence, so much ability, both feet. He had so much football smartness with him, and the composure he shows there to just easily take it past the goalkeeper and roll it in is. It's special, because most players, if they don't panic, they will rush something and they will smash it. But this is composure on top level.
It's one of those that just makes you smile, because yeah, it's just really almost like a cheeky goal in a way. The ball comes round the corner, the keeper's there, and just the sort of feint, the slight of dropping the shoulder, keeper's on the ground, and then he slots it into the empty net, and you kind of think, well, how's he done that? And you look at it, he's given him the eyes, he's done the drop the shoulder, and it's a tremendous goal, and one of those that really does make you smile. And I think that's kind of when TADIC was at his best, that's what he did, because he had the talent to produce that.
Well, that's it for part 2. Click here for part 3, where we'll be looking at goals 80 to 71, including goals from Ricky Lambert and a brilliant strike from a certain Steve de Ridder.